Clara Whitmore once believed that the house you grew up in left a permanent mark on you, something quiet and instructive that settled beneath the skin and shaped how love was supposed to feel. On a gray December afternoon, that belief fractured. She stood in her narrow kitchen frosting cupcakes while her daughter Lily carefully placed paper stars on the wall and her son Oliver charged a toy dinosaur through scattered crayons. The apartment smelled like sugar and warmth. Before I continue, kindly subscribe to the channel, like the video, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from today. When Clara's phone buzzed with her mother Evelyn's name, she smiled out of habit and wiped her hands on a towel before answering. She expected light talk about travel plans or dessert assignments. Instead, Evelyn's voice sounded sharp and prepared, as if she had rehearsed every word. She explained that Nathan was bringing his new girlfriend, Blair, home for Christmas. There would be photos, sponsors, a presentation. Evelyn paused, then said the children shouldn't come. They were unpredictable, loud. They would disturb the atmosphere. Clara stared at the cupcakes as the words settled. She murmured that she understood, even though her chest tightened. When the call ended, her hands trembled so badly the frosting knife scraped against the counter. Lily looked up, confused, and Clara forced a smile she didn't feel. That night, sleep avoided Clara completely. She lay on the couch beneath the soft glow of mismatched Christmas lights Lily had insisted on keeping on overnight. The apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Evelyn's sentence replayed again and again in her head, stripping itself of politeness each time it returned. Around 1 in the morning, Clara got up and wandered through the rooms. She noticed the ornaments hanging too low, the craft projects taped unevenly to the walls, the toy dinosaurs lined up on the blankets like sentries. None of it was polished. None of it was staged. Standing there, Clara felt something loosen inside her chest, something she hadn't realized had been clenched for years. She remembered her childhood home, spotless rooms, careful smiles, voices lowered when guests were present. Appearance had always come first. She understood then that Evelyn wasn't only excluding the children from Christmas. She was asking Clara to repeat the same quiet erasure she had grown up with. By morning, exhaustion pressed down on her, but beneath it sat a steady calm she didn't yet recognize. That calm lasted until the doorbell rang, hard and insistent, cutting through the stillness like an alarm. When Clara opened the door, Calder rushed in along with the entire Whitmore family. Evelyn stood at the front, her coat immaculate, her expression tight with irritation. Thomas hovered behind her, already rubbing his temples. Nathan stepped forward confidently, followed by Blair, who scanned the apartment with polite disinterest. Blair's beige coat was spotless, her smile thin. "So you're Clara," she said, glancing past her into the living room. "This explains the issue." The words landed lightly but cut deep. Evelyn walked inside without waiting, sighing as she took in the toys and clutter. Thomas muttered something about stress. Nathan launched into an explanation about branding, about how Christmas photos were part of a larger plan. Blair added comments about lighting, sponsorships, and maintaining a clean visual identity. Clara stood barefoot in her doorway, listening as her home and children were discussed like obstacles. When she finally spoke, her voice surprised her with its steadiness. She asked if they truly believed Lily and Oliver didn't belong. Silence followed. Evelyn finally said the children were unpredictable. Loud. Blair nodded, scrolling on her phone, and added that kids smudged things and cried. "It's just not the look," she said. Nathan scoffed and told Clara she wouldn't understand because she was stuck, while he and Blair were building something. The absurdity almost made her laugh. Instead, she watched Evelyn tilt her head and say, "For once, stop being difficult." The phrase struck something old and familiar. Clara refused. The word felt strange in her mouth but solid. Evelyn reacted immediately, clutching her hands and claiming Clara was making her feel terrible. Thomas suggested compromise. Nathan insisted it was only one holiday. Blair offered a separate visit after New Year's, casual and low effort. Then Evelyn revealed the real reason for their visit. Hosting was expensive. They needed help. When Clara asked how much, Evelyn scolded her for being rude before naming the number anyway. $2,000. Nathan lifted his chin as if proud. Blair smiled at her phone. Before Clara could respond, Oliver wandered into the hallway rubbing his eyes and whispering that he wanted pancakes. Clara stepped in front of him instinctively, guiding him back. When she faced her family again, she said she would think about it. Evelyn pressed for an answer. Clara nodded calmly, then closed the door without another word. The latch clicked, final and quiet. Inside the apartment, the silence felt unfamiliar. Lily hummed in the living room while Oliver banged dishes in the kitchen, creating noise that felt honest. Clara's phone buzzed with messages from the family group chat, demands layered with deadlines. Instead of replying, she opened a folder labeled receipts. Screenshots filled the screen, bills paid, subscriptions covered, emergencies handled. She sent 12 images into the chat and waited. The responses came fast: denial, anger, excuses. Clara typed carefully, explaining what would change. Phone plans, passwords, accounts. When she sent the message, something settled inside her. Ownership. The doorbell rang again, sharp and impatient. Clara inhaled, steadying herself, and walked toward the door knowing this moment would not be undone. When Clara opened the door again, the winter air rushed past her ankles. Evelyn stood rigid, her voice clipped and formal as she declared Clara's behavior unacceptable. Thomas folded his arms and demanded an apology, though he struggled to explain for what. Nathan accused Clara of sabotaging an opportunity, repeating words like momentum and exposure. Blair stepped forward calmly, explaining that children were distracting on camera, her tone measured and professional. Clara listened without interrupting. The words no longer blurred together. When she replied, her voice stayed level. She said children were distracting because they were alive. Blair corrected her immediately. Not for our content. Before Clara could answer, Lily appeared behind her, holding a paintbrush dusted with red glitter. Her voice was small. Mom, are we in trouble? The question hung in the air. Evelyn's face tightened with embarrassment. Clara knelt and told Lily she had done nothing wrong. When she stood again, she asked Evelyn what she had said about the children. Evelyn hesitated, then admitted she had described them as overwhelming. Blair sighed. Thomas warned they would leave if Clara didn't calm down. Then leave, Clara said, quietly. The firmness surprised everyone, including her. Evelyn gasped and called Clara disrespectful. Nathan muttered that she was unhinged. Clara answered evenly, stating that she would not fund people who treated her children like clutter. Nathan stepped closer, furious, insisting she was ruining Christmas over a tone issue. Clara corrected him. She wasn't ruining anything. She pointed toward the hallway where Lily and Oliver stood watching, uncertain. She said that if her children weren't welcome, then neither was she. Evelyn warned her she would regret this. Clara replied that she regretted staying silent for so long. She closed the door slowly, not slamming it, not shaking. Inside, the apartment felt warm. Oliver sang a made-up dinosaur song while Lily swept glitter into a crooked pile. They watched Clara carefully, searching her face for answers. She smiled and asked who wanted pancakes. Oliver cheered loudly. They cooked together, flour on the counters, laughter spilling into every corner. Later, while they built a blanket fort, Clara's phone buzzed again. Messages complained that phones weren't working. Confused, Clara called the provider. A representative named Ethan explained that an attempted upgrade had been made at 3 a.m, shipping to Nathan's address. Clara canceled the order immediately. She sent the screenshot to the group chat. Nathan replied with a single emoji. Evelyn accused her of being petty. Thomas claimed they had raised her better. Clara muted the chat and let the quiet return. The afternoon moved gently after that. Around 3 o'clock, there was another knock, this one soft. When Clara opened the door, Aunt Margaret stood holding a small paper bag. She stepped inside without ceremony, announcing that Evelyn had crossed a line. Lily and Oliver ran to her instantly. Margaret handed them gingerbread cookies and whispered that they were store-bought, making them giggle. Clara laughed too, surprised by how light it felt. Margaret squeezed Clara's arm and said Evelyn wasn't hurt, just furious about losing control. She stayed nearly an hour, making crafts and telling stories, never asking Clara to explain herself. When she left, her look carried quiet approval. That night, after the children fell asleep tangled beneath blankets and glitter-speckled drawings, Clara sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and a notebook. The Christmas lights blinked unevenly. She opened a new business account, transferred funds, closed the shared credit card, froze her credit, and removed everyone from the phone plan. Messages came in asking for help. Clara did not rush to respond. Instead, she gathered what had been borrowed and never returned. The ring light from Evelyn's baking streams. The tablet Nathan needed for a weekend. Blair's tripod left behind after brunch. She placed everything in a large bag, drove to her parents' house, and left it on the porch with a simple note. When she returned home, she created a folder on her laptop labeled Clarity and saved every message and screenshot there. Not as proof for anyone else, just so she wouldn't forget. The apartment felt settled afterward. The decorations leaned crookedly. The paper snowflakes Lily cut looked more like amoebas than winter shapes. Christmas arrived quietly. The children woke her early, whispering that it was snowing. It wasn't much, just a light dusting melting on the pavement, but they rushed outside in pajamas and mismatched boots anyway. They made slightly burnt cinnamon rolls and opened gifts slowly. Clara took 2 photos, not for sharing, just for memory. Around noon, her phone buzzed with a message from Blair. She admitted she hadn't known about the financial history and said she was reconsidering things. Clara replied with 3 words and put the phone down. 2 days later, Evelyn suggested Sunday dinner to talk things through. Thomas followed with a message saying Evelyn missed the children. Clara read both carefully before replying with one condition. They would stay for 1 hour. If Image or money came up, they would leave. Thomas agreed. They arrived exactly at 3 o'clock. Evelyn greeted them with a tight smile, then surprised Clara by kneeling to Lily and Oliver and saying she had made a mistake. No excuses. Just the sentence. The children accepted it immediately. The hour passed quietly. Dry cookies. Polite conversation. Nathan and Blair were absent. Evelyn hovered, catching herself each time she tried to steer things. When she began hinting at future plans, Clara stood, smiled, and said it was time to go. That night, after the children slept, Clara stood alone in the kitchen. The apartment hummed softly around her. This version of her life felt settled. She turned off the lights and went to bed without checking her phone. The days that followed settled into a quieter rhythm. Clara returned to work, answered emails, cooked dinners, and helped Lily practice spelling words while Oliver insisted dinosaurs needed bedtime stories too. The absence of constant family messages felt strange at first, like a missing background noise she hadn't realized had been exhausting her. She noticed how much lighter her evenings felt without anticipating demands. One afternoon, Thomas called. His voice was careful, almost formal. He asked whether Clara had meant what she said about boundaries. Clara answered yes, simply. There was a pause, then a reluctant acknowledgement. He didn't apologize. He didn't argue either. After the call, Clara sat at the kitchen table longer than necessary, staring at a smudge of marker Lily had left behind. It occurred to her that change didn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrived in the form of people choosing not to push. That night, she found herself sleeping deeply for the first time in weeks. The apartment creaked softly, the heater ticking on and off, and the familiar sounds grounded her. When she woke, she didn't feel braced for anything. She felt present. The calendar on the wall still read December, but the pressure she associated with it had loosened. Clara poured herself coffee, watched steam rise, and let the quiet stretch without filling it. Midweek brought another message, this time from Nathan. It was brief and poorly phrased, suggesting that things had escalated unnecessarily. Clara read it twice and didn't respond. Instead, she took Lily and Oliver to the library after school. Lily curled into a reading nook while Oliver carefully arranged plastic animals along the windowsill. Clara watched them from a distance, noticing how easily they settled when no one asked them to be smaller. That evening, Blair sent a follow-up message, clarifying that her earlier apology hadn't been strategic. She said she was learning what silence had cost others. Clara acknowledged the message without offering reassurance. She understood now that not every realization required her involvement. Later, as she folded laundry, Clara found herself humming without noticing. The sound surprised her. She hadn't done that in years. She hung the clothes, wiped down the counters, and set out bowls for breakfast the next morning. Routine felt different now. It no longer felt like maintenance. It felt like ownership. When the kids asked whether they would see their grandparents again, Clara said yes, when everyone was respectful. The answer felt complete. No qualifiers. No rehearsed explanations. Just a statement that didn't require defense. The following Sunday arrived without ceremony. Clara took the children to a park instead of her parents' house. The sky hung low and gray, but the swings were empty, and the air felt open. Oliver raced toward the slide while Lily dragged her boots through damp leaves, narrating a story only she understood. Clara sat on a bench and watched them, phone tucked away in her coat pocket. When it buzzed, she ignored it until they were ready to leave. The message was from Evelyn. It wasn't confrontational. It wasn't warm either. It asked when they might visit again. Clara considered the wording carefully before replying that she would let her know. She didn't add anything else. At home, the children helped make soup, stirring slowly and arguing about whose turn it was to add salt. The evening passed quietly. After bedtime, Clara opened her notebook and added a few practical notes about the coming year. Appointments, savings goals, small plans that didn't involve anyone else's expectations. She closed the notebook and set it aside. The future didn't feel uncertain. It felt open, which was different. As she turned off the lights, Clara noticed how little she thought about approval now. The absence of it no longer felt like loss. A week later, Evelyn called again. This time, her voice sounded cautious. She asked how the children were doing. Clara answered honestly. They were fine. There was a pause, then Evelyn said she had been sorting old photo albums. She mentioned how young Clara had been in most of them. The comment felt observational rather than accusatory. Clara listened without filling the silence. When Evelyn asked if Clara ever felt overwhelmed, Clara said sometimes. But that didn't mean she was failing. Evelyn didn't argue. She ended the call sooner than usual. Afterward, Clara felt neither relief nor frustration. Just a quiet neutrality. That afternoon, Aunt Margaret stopped by again, bringing a puzzle too large for the table. They worked on it together, laughing when pieces refused to fit. Margaret mentioned that families adjusted when they had no other option. Clara didn't respond. She didn't need reassurance. That evening, Clara sat on the floor helping Oliver tape a drawing to the wall. Lily corrected his placement carefully, insisting it needed to be straight. Clara let them decide. When she stepped back, the drawing tilted slightly anyway. She left it. Some things didn't need fixing. As the year edged closer to its end, Clara noticed how differently time moved. Days felt fuller, not because more was happening, but because she wasn't bracing herself between moments. The family chat remained muted. When messages appeared, they waited. Nothing urgent arrived. One evening, Thomas sent a photo of the old house, the lights dim, the rooms quiet. He wrote that it felt strange without noise. Clara studied the image before replying that quiet could mean many things. She didn't elaborate. She spent that night helping Lily rehearse a school presentation while Oliver used couch cushions to build elaborate barricades. After they slept, Clara cleaned the kitchen slowly, deliberately, not rushing toward anything. She paused at the window, watching her reflection overlay the dark glass. The person staring back looked steadier than she remembered. She didn't feel hardened. She felt clarified. When she finally went to bed, there was no sense of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just the soft certainty that whatever came next would be met on her terms. January arrived without ceremony. Decorations came down slowly, one paper chain at a time, until the apartment returned to its usual shape. Clara packed the ornaments into a small box and slid it into the closet without sentimentality. Life resumed its practical rhythm. School mornings, packed lunches, work deadlines. One afternoon, Lily asked why people fought about holidays. Clara answered that sometimes people argued about things they didn't know how to say plainly. Lily accepted this and returned to her drawing. Oliver announced that dinosaurs didn't celebrate holidays at all. Clara smiled and agreed. That evening, Clara received an email from her bank confirming that all linked accounts had been fully separated. She read it once and archived it. The sense of relief that followed was quiet but unmistakable. Later, while washing dishes, she realized she hadn't checked her phone compulsively in days. The habit had dissolved on its own. She dried her hands, turned off the kitchen light, and joined the children on the couch. They watched a movie they'd already seen, narrating their favorite parts out loud. Clara let the noise wash over her. It no longer felt disruptive. It felt like proof of movement, of life continuing without pause. Mid-month, Nathan showed up unexpectedly. He stood outside the building, hands shoved into his coat pockets, posture uncertain. Clara didn't invite him in. They spoke in the cold hallway while neighbors passed. He said things had become complicated. Sponsorships were delayed. Plans had shifted. Clara listened without offering solutions. Nathan eventually admitted he hadn't expected her to follow through on everything she'd said. Clara replied that she hadn't expected to either, until she did. The conversation ended awkwardly. Nathan left without asking about money. Clara watched him walk away, then returned upstairs. That night, she cooked a simple dinner and helped Lily glue sequins onto a cardboard crown. Oliver declared himself king of the couch. Clara played along until bedtime. Later, she sat alone with a book she had been meaning to finish for years. She read without checking the clock, without anticipating interruption. When she closed the book, the apartment felt settled. The quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Evelyn called less often after that. When she did, The conversations stayed brief. She asked about school. She commented on the weather. Clara answered politely and didn't volunteer more than necessary. The shift wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, almost careful. One afternoon, Clara found an old voicemail while clearing storage on her phone. Evelyn's voice, years earlier, reminding her to smile for a photo. Clara deleted it without hesitation. That evening, she took the children out for dinner at a small neighborhood place. They shared fries and laughed when Oliver dropped ketchup on his shirt. No one apologized for the mess. Back home, Lily asked if they could plan a trip someday. Clara said maybe, and meant it. Possibility felt different now. It wasn't something she had to negotiate. It was something she could decide. As the children slept, Clara sat by the window, watching streetlights flicker on. She didn't feel victorious. She felt settled into herself, as if something long misaligned had finally been set straight. By late January, routine solidified. Clara's work stabilized. The children adjusted easily to the quieter family dynamic. When school sent home a notice about a family event, Clara hesitated only briefly before signing up. Lily asked if her grandparents would come. Clara said she didn't know. That answer felt honest and sufficient. On the day of the event, Clara sat in a folding chair while Lily read aloud confidently and Oliver waved from the audience. Clara clapped without scanning the room for anyone else. Later, Thomas sent a message saying he'd heard about it. He added that he was proud. Clara thanked him and left it there. That night, she sorted through mail, recycling what no longer mattered. She noticed how little space her family occupied in her thoughts now. Not absent, just appropriately sized. She turned off the lights, checked on the children, and stood for a moment in the hallway. The apartment felt balanced. Not perfect. Balanced. As February approached, Clara found herself making plans that didn't revolve around damage control. She scheduled a weekend trip with the kids for spring. She enrolled Oliver in a class he'd been curious about. She rearranged the living room, moving the couch closer to the window. Small choices, made without consultation. One evening, Evelyn sent a message asking if Clara wanted to host something soon. Clara didn't answer immediately. She finished washing the dishes first. Then she replied that she wasn't planning anything right now. Evelyn responded with a neutral acknowledgement. Clara set the phone down. Lily was at the table, concentrating on homework, her tongue pressed between her teeth. Oliver hummed softly on the floor. Clara watched them for a moment, then joined them. The future no longer felt like something she had to brace for. It felt like something unfolding at a pace she could live with. Late winter settled in fully, bringing shorter days and steadier routines. Clara noticed how the apartment seemed to hold warmth better now, as if familiarity itself insulated the walls. One evening, as she folded laundry, Lily asked if they would ever have a big family Christmas again. Clara considered the question carefully before answering that holidays could look different each year. Lily nodded, satisfied, and returned to arranging her stuffed animals into careful rows. Oliver interrupted to announce that dinosaurs preferred small groups anyway. Clara laughed and let the moment pass without further explanation. The family chat remained silent. No emergencies surfaced. No requests followed. On a quiet Thursday, Clara received a final message from Evelyn, short and restrained, asking whether Clara wanted to come by the old house sometime soon. Clara read it once, then set the phone down. She didn't feel pressure to decide immediately. The absence of urgency felt like progress, even if no one named it as such. That night, Clara stood at the kitchen sink watching snow drift past the window. The apartment behind her was softly lit, imperfect and lived in. She stayed there longer than necessary, not thinking, just standing, letting the moment exist without needing to resolve it. By early March, the days began to stretch. Clara took the children to the park after school, where patches of snow melted into damp grass. Lily practiced balancing along the edge of a low wall, arms out, concentrating hard. Oliver chased pigeons with loud determination. Clara sat nearby, sipping coffee from a travel mug, watching without intervening. Her phone stayed in her pocket. When it buzzed, she ignored it until they were ready to leave. The message was from Thomas, letting her know Evelyn was adjusting, slowly. Clara didn't reply right away. She walked home with the children, their boots muddy, their conversation overlapping. Dinner was simple. Homework was done at the table. Later, as Clara tucked them into bed, Lily asked if things were okay now. Clara said they were steady. That seemed enough. Afterward, Clara cleaned the kitchen and wiped down the counters, moving with ease. Nothing felt urgent. Nothing felt unresolved in a way that demanded her attention. She turned off the lights and went to bed without revisiting old conversations, without rehearsing future ones. Spring arrived quietly. One morning, Clara opened the windows and let fresh air move through the apartment. The curtains shifted gently. The children ate breakfast at the table, arguing about who had the better spoon. Clara packed lunches and tied shoelaces, the ordinary motions grounding her. As they left for the day, she paused, taking in the small space that had carried them through the winter. Nothing about it was impressive. Everything about it was sufficient. Later that afternoon, Clara deleted the last archived message she had been holding on to, one she no longer needed to reread. The act felt neutral, not symbolic. That evening, she cooked dinner while Lily colored and Oliver narrated an elaborate story involving dinosaurs and outer space. The apartment filled with sound. Clara moved easily within it, not managing, not anticipating, simply participating. When the children finally settled into sleep, Clara stood in the doorway for a moment, listening to their breathing, then turned off the light. The day ended without punctuation, without announcement. It ended the way most days did now, complete on its own terms. Thank you for watching until the end. If any part of this story stayed with you, tell me which moment spoke to you most in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.